Thank you everybody so much for joining us today. We are here to talk about utilizing U.S. federal student loans while studying at UCD. My name is Bridie Troy. I am the admissions manager for North America. I also work with our funding office, so I'm really excited to be here to talk with you today. I am joined with Tessa Rendina, who is also a wealth of knowledge on federal aid and funding. Um, yeah, Tessa. I'm based in Chicago. Sorry, Tessa.
Yeah, thanks, Freddie. My name is Tessa. I'm based in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I'm an admissions counselor. So I might have chatted with some of you on the road, but hopefully we can provide some more information, in-depth information about federal aid.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So this webinar will be recorded. We will stop the recording before our live Q&A session at the end, just for your own privacy. If you have questions throughout, feel free to pop them in the Q&A bar, not the chat, because if it's in the chat, we might miss it. Some things get lost, but if you pop it in the Q&A, we will get to it. And then we will save a few minutes at the end to answer any of your questions live that we might have, but Tessa will be responding to some questions as we go. Please make sure not to put any like personal identifying information in these questions, just because everybody else will be able to see them. And if you do have more specific questions to your own situation after this webinar, you can always reach out to our federal aid office, federalaid@ucd.ie. So, some of you may have borrowed federal loans at a U.S. university before, but the process can be slightly different abroad. Luckily, we have a dedicated federal aid team to help you throughout the process, and we have many resources for you to consult along the way. Great. So, today we are going to discuss who is eligible for federal aid and what types of loans exist. We're going to go over the application process step by step and what happens after you arrive in Ireland, and finally, how to stay eligible and then repay these loans once you graduate. So, timing is everything with financial aid. The FAFSA opens early in the year, and you should complete it as soon as possible. By now, everybody should have submitted the FAFSA at studentaid.gov using UCD's school code. So if you submitted the FAFSA without UCD's code, you can still log into your account at studentaid.gov and add UCD to the application. Without including our school code, G10188, UCD will not be able to receive your FAFSA information and will not be able to process your loans. If you have not yet submitted the FAFSA, that's okay. There is still time. I would just recommend doing this as soon as possible so that you can get the process started. So around this time, this April, May area, students are starting to receive their cost of attendance letter, or COA. This COA letter outlines the maximum amount of loans for which you are eligible to borrow. Now, the federal aid team has started to send these out in the order in which the FAFSA was submitted, but they are still processing hundreds of letters. So don't be alarmed if you have not yet received your COA. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. They are just working through the queue. Once you do receive your COA letter, you can start your U.S. financial aid application on SysWeb, the U.S. student portal. So this is separate from the FAFSA. You submit the FAFSA at the government's website, the studentaid.gov website, but you also have to complete a financial aid application on UCD's website on SysWeb. You will need to upload master promissory notes, entrance counseling, and loan acknowledgement forms. The full list of required documents, as well as where to find them, is in the Federal Aid Handbook, which I meant to pin in the chat. Tessa, if you don't mind just throwing that in the chat, just so everybody has it. This handbook will be your guide throughout the whole process, and it really outlines everything. So I definitely recommend keeping this link handy. Your application must be submitted on SysWeb by July 15th. Applications submitted after this date are not guaranteed to be processed in time for the first loan disbursement in September. So July 15th, write that on your calendar, circle it in red. Do not forget to submit by this date. And then funds are not given all at once. They are split across the year. So for those on 2 semester programs, like most undergraduate courses, you will receive 50% of your disbursement in September and 50% in January. For those on 3 trimester courses, like many graduate courses, you'll receive 1/3 of your disbursement in September, 1/3 in January, and then 1/3 in May. The federal aid team will measure your satisfactory academic progress before each disbursement, about which I'll explain more later. Please remember also, this is not a one-time process. You have to apply for aid every single year. So if you submit the FAFSA, do all of this year, you still have to do it again next year if you intend to take out loans again. So this isn't just once for the entire course. Now, there have been some major changes to federal loans that are beginning this July. I know many of you, especially the graduate students on the call, may have taken out loans before. For some of the parents on the call, maybe your other children have taken out loans before. The process is going to become different for everybody, U.S. universities as well. So these are really important to note, these changes. Some key notes, graduate plus loans are being phased out. So students who are starting their graduate program in September will no longer be able to borrow plus loans. They will only be able to borrow unsubsidized loans. Parent plus loans also now have caps. So parents will be able to borrow $20,000 per year per student. So if you have multiple kids in college, you will be able to borrow for each one with a $65,000 lifetime limit per student. So again, these are individual for your children. Um, there are new unsubsidized loan limits. So graduate students can't borrow plus loans, and they are now limited at $20,500 a year in unsubsidized loans up to a max of $100,000 over their lifetime. Professional programs have similar limits, slightly higher. There are also some changes to borrowing loans for part-time students. Non-EU students cannot be enrolled uh, in a part-time course at UCD for immigration purposes anyway, so this likely won't affect many of you. So this does mean that you likely will not be able to borrow the full cost of attendance with federal loans anymore. You will have to look into additional funding options. There are also new repayment plans. It may feel early to start thinking about repayment when you haven't even started class yet, but it's always good to know what your options will be upon graduation. So to qualify for U.S. federal student loans, students must be enrolled at least half-time. Again, non-EU citizens must be enrolled full-time for immigration purposes. So these are separate policies, but likely you'll be enrolled full-time anyway. You must be in an approved program, and it is your responsibility to confirm your loan eligibility. So most bachelor's degrees and graduate degrees are eligible. If your course is taught online instead of in person, it is not eligible. Graduate diplomas and certificates, which are different than MSc or MA programs, are not eligible. And certain professional programs are not eligible for U.S. federal loans either. If your program includes study abroad, internships, or partner universities, it's usually okay if it's less than 25% of your program. More than that can impact eligibility. So if we have an undergraduate student looking to study abroad for a year, that's okay. That's 25% of your program. If we have a graduate student that wants to do an internship for a trimester, that would be an issue because that would be 33% of your program, so above that 25% threshold. So this does mainly affect graduate programs where you might have the option to do an internship. You should definitely check with our federal aid office before committing to an internship over a thesis or a student project to ensure that this internship would not affect your loan eligibility. For joint master's programs, they are only eligible if the partner university is also approved to certify federal loans. So, for example, UCD offers a program called the MSc Comparative Social Change, which is taught jointly between UCD and Trinity College Dublin. And as both of these schools, UCD and Trinity College, are on the FAFSA, this program is eligible for federal loans. However, we also have a program called the MA International War Studies, which is jointly taught between UCD and the University of Potsdam in Germany. As the University of Potsdam is not approved to certify federal loans, the entire program is ineligible, including the year at UCD. If you have questions about this, please reach out to our federal aid team and they can walk you through it. If your program is ineligible due to an exchange or an internship, you might still be eligible for private loan options. So that is still something to look into. I did kind of talk about the different loan options you might have. So for undergraduate students, you will have the option to use subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans, and Parent Plus loans. These would be for undergraduate dependent students. The differences are subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans do have the best interest rates. For subsidized loans, the interest is paid by the Department of Education while you are studying. So these are the best ones to borrow. I would recommend maxing out the subsidized and unsubsidized loans before increasing your Parent Plus loans. Um, Parent Plus loans will be capped, as I said, at $20,000 per year per student. And then in the next slide, I'll go over the different caps for subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Graduate Plus loans are no longer available. So for graduate students, the only loan type available to you from the federal government would be those unsubsidized loans. You are not eligible for subsidized loans as a graduate student. So students cannot borrow unlimited amounts. There are annual limits and lifetime limits. The amount of subsidized and unsubsidized loans that dependent undergraduate students can borrow increases each year. So the amount of subsidized loans that you'll be eligible for is influenced by your financial need as indicated on the FAFSA. And you will see a breakdown of your loan eligibility for each type of loan on your COA. So as opposed to previous years, now loans may not cover your full costs anymore. And this chart is in our federal aid handbook, so you can consult it at any time. So now the steps to receiving your aid. So the first thing you have to do is fill out the FAFSA. As I mentioned, most of you should have done this already. There is still time though if you haven't. You do need to complete a new one every single year. It is simplified now though, so it shouldn't take as long as it might have taken in previous years. And you do need to make sure that you're using UCD school code so that we can receive your information. You will select your correct program level. So this would be for undergraduate students. If this is your first year in college, that you would be new. For graduate students, you would choose continuing graduate professional. For any veterinary medicine students that are in VTS 1, you are not eligible for loans if you have not yet completed 3 years of university. So if that applies to your situation, reach out to our federal aid team to learn more about your options. Once you submit the FAFSA, you will receive a FAFSA submission summary. This is basically a breakdown of everything you included in your FAFSA, just showing what you included. So you should check it for accuracy to make sure that all of your tax information is correct, all your program levels correct, and that you have included UCD school code. So understanding dependency status. This determines how much subsidized and unsubsidized loans you qualify for. So dependent students, when you fill out the FAFSA, you do need to include your parent information. Now, your typical undergraduate student would be a dependent student. This means that you are under the age of 23. Your parents claim you on their taxes. You live at home. This does mean that you might have lower amounts of subsidized and unsubsidized eligibility, but you are also eligible to take out Parent Plus loans. Independent students, all graduate students are independent, but it is possible to be an independent student as an undergraduate. This would mean that you'd have higher levels of unsubsidized loans you could take out, but you would not be able to take out any Parent Plus loans. Now, this is determined by the federal government. UCD can change in very rare cases a student from dependent to independent. Um, but they cannot reverse this change. So if you do have questions about your dependency status, then you should reach out to our federal aid team. This is in very rare cases. So if you are, an undergraduate student and maybe your parents just don't want to take out Parent Plus loans, that's not enough to switch you to an independent student. Any attempt to obtain loan money outside federal regulations or to kind of tweak your dependency status untruthfully is considered fraudulent and can carry serious consequences. So after you've submitted your FAFSA, you will get your cost of attendance letter, your COA letter. This is one of the most important pieces to receive because it tells you the maximum that you can borrow. And it tells you in what type of loans you can borrow. Now, again, the team is working through hundreds of these, so it is very likely you haven't gotten one yet, but you might be in the queue for it. Once you receive the COA, review it very carefully. Make sure that everything included is accurate, your tuition fee, your scholarships that you might have received from UCD or from outside sources, your dependency status, length of program, etc. So if there are any errors, you should let our federal aid team know as soon as possible. If you do receive an outside scholarship and you don't tell UCD about it and it's not showing up on your COA, that can be considered loan fraud, and that can carry a lot of fines, and depending on how much fraud, can maybe even result in jail time. So it's very important that you let our federal aid team know of any scholarship money that you will be receiving. Your COA is the maximum of what you can borrow, but only borrow what you need. Again, you will have to repay these with interest, so it's important to look at your own budget first, and figure out how much you'll need. Now, you can increase or decrease your loan request throughout the year up to the total cost of attendance. So if you borrow less than the total COA at first, and then after your first disbursement, you think, maybe I do need the full amount, you can email our federal aid team and then they can increase your amount for the second disbursement. Um, on the COA, you are going to see very high dollar numbers. UCD does use a worst case scenario exchange rate, which is higher than the actual exchange rate to calculate your COA in euros, which allows for any flexibility and fluctuations. Now, this is important to note because on the COA, the exchange rate is written as $1.27 to the euro, when in actuality, it's more like $1.17 to the euro. So keep that in mind when you are budgeting. Your loans will be borrowed in dollars, or yeah, your loans will be borrowed in dollars and repaid in dollars. But once they reach your tuition and your bank account, they will be converted to euros. So keep that in mind. There is a part on the COA for additional exceptional expenses. This is used very rarely, and it's really for people who have chronic medical needs or they need additional accommodations. If you do think that you are eligible for additional expenses on your COA, reach out to our federal aid team. Now, after you receive your COA, you will be able to complete the UCD financial aid application on SysWeb. That's UCD's website. So you do have to complete both the FAFSA and the SysWeb application. What you'll enter on SysWeb is your program, your COA amount that you're able to borrow, and then the amount that you actually want to borrow in which types of loans you want to borrow from. So, because the subsidized and unsubsidized loans have better interest rates than the Parent Plus loans, I would recommend borrowing as much of the unsubsidized and subsidized loans as possible before moving on to the Parent Plus loans. This is also where you can include that you plan to do an internship or an exchange. They will ask for a lot of documents from you, so this might take a little bit to complete, but you can always save it and come back to it. It doesn't need to be completed in one sitting. And the whole list of documents and where to find these documents is in the Federal Aid Handbook, so you can check from there and you'll know exactly what to do. This application needs to be submitted by July 15th. And all the documents need to be submitted by July 15th. Anything submitted after July 15th, or if the application has errors in it, might cause a delay in your first disbursement. So once approved, students receive a loan detail letter, which shows their loan amounts, their disbursement schedule, and what they can expect as their next steps. So when you accept your loan detail letter, you are agreeing to remain full-time, you're agreeing to remain in good academic standing, and to notify UCD immediately if you plan to withdraw, take a leave of absence, or study abroad. So students must open an Irish bank account to receive your federal student loans. These funds are to be used for your education in Ireland, and the US government wants the money refunded to your Irish bank account to show that you are using it for your life in Dublin. Now, opening an Irish bank account is not that difficult, but it cannot be done before arrival, and it can't be done before you register for classes. So I do recommend that you open it as soon as you arrive in Dublin, but after you've registered for classes. Normally during orientation week is a really good time to get this sorted. As soon as you open your bank account, you will upload your bank details to SysWeb. And this is how the federal aid team knows where to refund or send your funds borrowed. Anything borrowed over the cost of that tuition amount will be refunded back to you to use for living expenses. And these are the instructions to upload your bank details, but this is also included in the federal aid handbook. So you'll be able to see the exact steps right there. Um, the loans cannot be refunded to you until your bank details are uploaded into SysWeb. So if you take a month to open up your bank account, it's going to take you a month to receive your federal loan refund. Now, loans are paid in installments, not at once. First, the funds go to tuition. So for those on 2 trimester programs, we would take 50% of your total loan amount borrowed. Take that 50%, pay off 50% of your tuition. Anything left after that will be sent to your Irish bank account as a refund. Um, Same for people on 3 trimester programs. You would get 1/3 of your disbursement. We would pay 1/3 of your tuition and then send the remainder back to you. Um, Now you will see on your COA letter a difference between the gross and the net loan amounts. The U.S. Department of Education does deduct an origination fee before your funds reach UCD. UCD does not see any part of this fee. So you will see that the amount you borrow is slightly more than the amount that you're actually getting. Your loans are borrowed in US dollars and they will be repaid in US dollars, but your expenses are in euros. So we use the exchange rate on the exact day that we receive the funds from the US government. And we will receive your money in dollars, exchange it into euros for whatever the exchange rate is that day, pay off your tuition in euros, and then refund anything back to you in euros. Um, and so while I mentioned this worst case scenario exchange rate on the COA letter earlier, this is not the one that they will be using to make that exchange. They will be using the exchange rate given on the exact day that they draw down your funds. Um, Again, I do want to stress any scholarships you've received, you should include in your financial aid application. Otherwise, there are legal repercussions for it. And if you received a UCD Global Scholarship, so many of you received an International Student Scholarship, 100% of your scholarship is applied to your student account in that first semester. So it's very likely that your first refund to your Irish bank account will be much larger than your second refund. And that is because we give you your scholarship all at once, but your loans are still distributed in 50% or 33% disbursements. So I mentioned satisfactory academic progress a little bit today. All federal aid recipients must maintain SAP, and students are evaluated at the end of each trimester or semester across 3 different measures. So you have to maintain this academic progress by showing that you will still graduate in the maximum time frame allowed by the US government, which is 150% of the program's intended length. So if you are coming to UCD for a 4-year undergraduate program, you do have to show that you will be able to complete the program at least in 6 years. For a graduate student on a 1-year program, you will have to show that you will be able to complete the program in at least a year, in at most a year and a half. You will also have to show that you are passing at least 2/3 of all the classes that you have taken. And your GPA cannot fall below a 2.0 out of 4.2. UCD does use a 4.2 GPA scale. And so the loan team does look at this every semester before they do your disbursement. They will judge you on your making sure that you are on path to graduate within that maximum time frame, that you are passing the minimum amount of classes required to pass, and that your GPA has not fallen below a D average. If you do not meet SAP, then you will be put on probation. You will have one more semester chance to bring up those grades to show that you will graduate within that time frame, whatever aspect of SAP you failed. If you do not meet SAP 2 trimesters in a row, then you will lose your federal loan eligibility. This can be appealed, so you would just reach out to federal aid at ucd.ie right away if you think you are in danger of not meeting SAP. So, if you make any registration changes, then this can affect your loan eligibility. So, if you're dropping classes or withdrawing from classes, this can affect your loans. Very similar to what I said earlier, for immigration purposes, many of you will not be able to drop to part-time anyway. So this won't affect many of you, but if you are planning to drop and go into part-time loans, you do have to let the federal aid team know right away and then figure out what that means for your loan eligibility. If you're planning on taking a leave of absence, or maybe a gap year during your degree program, you do have to apply for this as soon as possible, usually within the first 2 months of the semester. And you have to let federal aid know as soon as possible so that they can work out how this would affect your loans. If you do withdraw from UCD, then you should let federal aid know as soon as possible so that you don't get charged extra, and that they can start the process of returning those loan funds. Now, again, we're looking far into the future, but once you have graduated, your loan journey has not yet stopped. So you will have to complete exit counseling. This is required by the U.S. Department of Education before you leave UCD, and it's done in about half an hour at the studentaid.gov website. You will then have a 6-month grace period before you have to start repaying those loans. So it gives you some time to get established in your career, and get a few more paychecks under your belt. Now, this is very, very important to note, and I know sometimes we have a lot of questions from parents about it. It's called GDPR. UCD is in Ireland, which is in the EU, so we have to follow EU data protection laws. GDPR means that we can only talk to the student about their account. I often have parents ask me, well, I'm taking out a Parent Plus loan. Can't you give me the information? Legally, we cannot. So if you do have questions about federal loans, they have to come from the student's email. So that's just something important to note. It's not us trying to withhold this information from you. That's just us following the laws. We can only discuss it with the student. New repayment plans are being introduced. So that is definitely something to look into that can kind of help with your loan repayment once you graduate. So, find out more. I will drop this link in the chat as well. It's just our federal aid website on UCD. But I wanted to give you the whole URL in case you have questions. It's there. And you can reach out to our federal aid office with any questions that you have. You can reach out to our North America team, so to Tessa or myself, through our Future Students portal. And then once you actually get to Ireland, it's very possible to just pop into the federal aid office and ask them questions there. When you submit your application, you will have to sign and upload the handbook signature page asking if you've read the handbook. So I highly recommend everybody reads the handbook. It will tell you everything you need to know. And you have to read it so that you can submit your application.